Okay, so we are back to Pirkei Avos, and we technically speaking did not finish what we did last time, which was um, the mishnah about haughtiness. I just want to read it because I have a PSA, which I probably said last time, but it bears repeating. Yeah, so the last mishnah was Dalid. Rabbi Livitas ish yavne omer me'od me'od have shval ruach. A person should be very, very humble. Shetikvas enosh, or very, very low spirited. Shetikvas enosh rima, because the hope of man, of mortal man, is worms. So we started doing that, and I think I mentioned last time there is an excellent essay by it's essentially an essay by the Rambam on humility in his commentary on Pirkei Avos. I highly recommend doing that. I just for some reason couldn't get into doing it for shiur. And I'm going to say that I'd like to come back to it, but like, who knows? Like, I just wanted to move on. So that's why we moved on. I'm not sure why this is in the same mishnah because it's a different topic and a different author, but that's where we're at now. So, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka Omer. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka says, Kol hamachalel shem shamayim baseser nifra'in mimenu begalui echad shogeg ve'echad mezid b'chilul Hashem. Anyone want to try translating that? Yeah, tomorrow. Go ahead.
So Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka would say or says, right? Okay, anyone who is desecrates the Shem Shemayim, the name of heaven, I guess,
Yeah.
in secret.
Yep.
He's punished in public.
Yep. Is punished in public. And I'm punished in public is fine. Someone who I was preparing this with asked about what the lashon is of nifra'in mimenu. Literally, nifra'in mimenu means like punishment is taken from him or exacted from him in public, but punished in public is fine. Okay, and then echad shogig ve'echad mezid b'chilul Hashem.
So
a little hard to translate like syntax.
It's like I don't know literally, but like
yeah,
they're like equivalent, right? Accident and
yeah, they're equivalent, exactly.
Equivalent.
Yeah. So right. So unintentional and intentional are alike in the desecration of the name. Okay. So that is the short mishnah. Okay. So what are the questions? Yeah, Ella?
In what way is like the person desecrating Hashem's name here in this mishnah? Like, what is it talking about?
Okay, so what case or cases is this talking about here? Okay, so that's the general form of the question. So that's like I guess the she'ela form of the question, like just asking what is it talking about. I think we maybe can subdivide that question, or there's maybe like problems within that question. I don't know if you had any of them in mind when you asked. So one of the things you said, I'll put this into sub questions anyway, which is, what is the meaning of mechalel shem shemayim in this context? Okay. Anyone have another question on the case? Yeah, Lauren.
I guess like how could you be mechalel shem shemayim in private? Because I usually think of chilul Hashem as something that other people see.
Okay, good. So specifically, how can one be mechalel shem shemayim in secret, right? We tend to think about chilul Hashem as something that is witnessed. Okay. And I was debating whether to show you this now or later. I'm going to show it to you now because okay, so the Tosfos Yom Tov raises this question, okay, and he says, oh, you know what? Hold on. Actually, no, I'll show it to you later because I don't want to bias you, but I want to show you like a funny bad answer to this question, in my opinion. Okay, but anyway, all right, let's go on and get the questions. All right, what else? Yeah, Ella?
How is this person like punished? And also like I feel like I've never seen this necessarily. So like what is it talking about?
Okay,
in that sense?
Yeah, so what type of punishment are we talking about? And then when you say you've never seen this, is that the same question as like, is this true? Like, how does this play out? Like, do the statistics hold up? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's stated like an absolute thing, And one of the questions that right now I don't know if I can answer, although I have like an approach, is actually I was debating whether to include the source, so I'm gonna go ahead and include it. It is a Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Mem Amud Aleph. Okay, and I'm using here the Steinsaltz translation, which adds a lot. Tanan Hasam, it was taught there, in makifin b'chil Hashem, which literally means we don't circle around in chilul Hashem. But Steinsaltz translates it as credit is not given with regards to the desecration of the name. You'll see what this means in a second. Echad shogeg, echad mesid, whether one sinned intentionally or unintentionally. My emakifin. So the Gemara asks, what does it mean? Emakifin, that we don't circle around or credit is not given. Amar Marzutra she'ein osin kechenvani. Marzutra says we don't act like a storekeeper, okay, which means storekeepers provide credit and then they collect the money later. But Rashi learns this to mean that one is punished without delay, okay? And then Mar says another answer. But the problem is like this, is not only do we not see this, seemingly, but especially if you take Rashi's interpretation of the Gemara in Kiddushin 40a, which says that God punishes the person immediately in public. So that which seems really not true. Okay, Shira.
Yeah, hello. So I'm confused about the unintentional part because I don't generally think of unintentional things to have to be punishable. So
okay.
How that.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to ask it as a question on the Mishnah, but then I'm also going to fill in the facts. So what is actually, I'm going to put this as one of the sub questions here. What is the case of a chilul Hashem v'shogeg? Okay, so just to go over the facts really quickly of just the standard definitions. Okay, so what is the definition of shogeg and what is the definition of mezi typically in halacha? Just a question for anyone. Or what there's several cases of shogeg. Yeah, Tamar.
Shogeg is like a negligent mistake, right?
Yeah, so that's actually a good way to put it. Yeah, negligent mistake. Okay, and there are a couple ways you could do that.
Like if you didn't know the halacha, or if you forgot that.
Right, so you didn't know the halacha, or you forgot it, or you didn't realize that this was a case where the halacha applied. Okay, and then mezid is intentional. Okay, right? Is you know what you're doing and you know it's asur. Okay, and then just I don't know if this was part of your question, Shira, but the other category is ones, which is either accidental or coerced, and that means that your act was not volitional. Okay, so ones we don't punish for. Okay, it's interesting you mention with the shogeg that you aren't used to thinking of shogeg as something you're punished for, because that's actually the first point that the Rambam makes, and which means he holds that this Mishnah is teaching that. Okay, so it's a good question to have. But we'll keep these definitions here, and we'll see what the Rambam says when we get to it. Okay, good. All right, next, who has another question? Yeah, Tamar.
What's the relationship between the parts? Are these two separate, independent facts about chilul Hashem, or are they related?
Okay, what is the relationship between the two clauses of this Mishnah? Okay, are these? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, are these two separate ideas, or are they related? And if so, how? Yeah. Okay, clearly the topics seem to be related, but it's not clear to see. This is kind of what Tamar faced when she was trying to translate this, is it's not even clear how you're supposed to read these two things. And by the way, just so you know, even though this is not going to play any role at all, there is another version of this Mishnah that puts a bet in here, and all the Mefarshim make a big deal about it, but I don't know why or how like it makes a difference exactly. So like Rashi holds that there should be a bet here, and a lot of other people say like no, there should not be a bet here. So whatever. Yeah, Ayala.
So on the second half, in what way are doing desecrating Hashem and
Yes. Okay.
Bishogig and is it alike?
Okay. That.
And I would think that they're not alike.
Right. Okay. So in what? Oops. Sorry. In what way are Shogeg and Mazid alike? I would think. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put that into a separate question. Okay. What is the Hava Amina for each clause? Okay. What would I have thought, and why would I have thought that? Okay. And then especially, I'm just going to make this for especially for the second clause. Okay. I would think that the two types of sin are not alike. Okay, that's why we differentiate. Okay, yeah. Tamar.
So about the beseser, like, is this? I guess this is kind of like it's not okay. It's not a Havamina question. I think it's like what would this mishnah say about someone who's Michal Shem Shemayim Begalai? Like, is that worse than it's telling you even Beseser? Does that person also get punished Begalai?
Yeah.
Is it only Seser?
What, if anything, is this mishnah saying about someone who is Michalel Shem Shemayim publicly? Yeah, right. It's right. You're right. I didn't even notice that it doesn't even talk about that. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I feel like these are the main questions. But we can always add if we want to. Okay, so let me just copy and paste these into the chat. So you have them. Okay, there's that. Yeah, Lauren?
I guess like what's the practical takeaway also?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot our standard question.
Our behavior.
Right.
And what's it doing in Pirkei Avos?
Yeah, okay, right. It's been a while since we've done Pirkei Avos. Okay, so our questions are what is the practical application here? And then who is the intended audience? Okay, is this specifically for high level like Chassid in training, or is it for everyone, or is it a spectrum? Yeah. Okay, those are two other questions that we usually ask. Okay, so because tonight I only really have one idea, although it's gonna involve a lot of sources, I do think, and since I think unlike many mishnahs and Pirkei Avos, I think like this is something that we can have like fruitful thought about on our own. Anyone want to try answering any of the questions? Or just giving an idea about this in general? I think we have the luxury to do that. Yeah, Tamar?
Okay, this is not like a complete idea or anything, but I was wondering if maybe with chilul Hashem, unlike with other, like with a lot of averos, the harm is like mostly to yourself, and with chilul Hashem, there's a significant like harm in the world. I don't know why with the Seser though, but maybe it's the same harm whether or not you intended to do it.
Okay, that is a good step. Okay, so so ideas or answers here. Okay, so Tamar is saying that with other averos, the harm is primarily to yourself, but with this one, the primary harm is the effect on the Shem Hashem, in the world. Sorry, in the world, and that effect might be the same in intentional and unintentional cases. Yeah, shiur?
Yeah, this isn't really a fully thought out idea.
Sure.
But I was just thinking in terms of like why what's the connection between it being in secret and then the punishment is in public?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've heard of an idea where if you desecrate Hashem's name in secret, it's almost as if you're like thinking that like he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So it makes it so that the punishment is public, so that I like forget the whole idea, but I feel
Okay,
like
no.
that's enough to get you like.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually is the main idea that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so that's the approach that I want to take. Okay, so that's we'll hold that in on the side burner because that's going to be the focus.
Okay.
Yeah, Ella?
I just had two more questions.
Sure.
One is just like I don't know if we can answer this now or whatever, but
Yeah.
does private mean like literally alone, or are there any other people there?
Yeah, okay, so I'll just tack that on to this. What is the case of Seser? Is it truly alone? Yeah, and that's going to connect to that Tosfos Yom Tov that I wanted to read. Yeah, and you had another question?
Yeah. Also, why is someone? I
Okay,
mean,
right.
this is kind of implicit, but
Yeah, and actually, we should ask why and what the cause and effect like mechanics are. Why is this the case? And then like what are the cause and effect mechanics, which is kind of like related to your question of uh about the is this true? Okay. Okay. Anyone else have any ideas or insights or half-baked intuitions? Yeah, Shira.
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm not sure if this is related to like the audience question, but who does it mean by anyone? Does it mean like
Oh,
is
yeah, I didn't even notice that word. Right. So it does seem to be anyone, right? Yeah.
is it only directed to like Jewish people, or I feel like in
Okay.
the
Yeah.
context of Tanakh it isn't, because we've seen it happen to
Okay.
people who aren't like
Who
kings.
is included in everyone? So here's the funny thing. Okay, so first of all, I'll say like, is this and does this extend to non-Jews? So I'll say it's interesting that like you might think that anyone means anyone. Okay, that's a reasonable assumption, but depending on how you define the case of being machal shem shemayim in private, it might be that not everyone is capable of doing that. In other words, it might be that anyone who does that, this statement is true for, but maybe not everyone can do that, depending on how you define it. Okay, so let's start going into the Mefarshim here. We're going to start off with just some facts, okay? And I'm going to start with this Tosfos Yom Tov, which I think is I hope I don't come across as disrespectful when I make fun of his answer. Okay, I'll show you. I think his question is very good. Here's what he says in his question. He says, and I put the translation here, but I'm going to read it in Hebrew like I usually do. So he says the explanation of chilul Shem Shemaim is like the Gemara explains in Yuma 86a. Shekol Talmid Chacham she'oseh chet davar zeh hu chilul Hashem. Any Talmid Chacham who does any sin, that is a chilul Hashem. Why? Shal Talmid Chacham yodea umakir es rabo, because a Talmid Chacham knows and recognizes his master, and I capitalize that because I assume it's talking about God, not his like Rebbe. The Gorim shiyomru habrios shavadai chas v'shalom. Shavadai chas v'shalom less din v'less dayan. Shari zehu hachacham yodea v'chote. So when Talmid Chacham sins, he'll cause people to say, God forbid, that there is no judge and there's no law and there's no judge, because this guy is a Chacham and he knows and yet he sinned. V'imkein kasha. Okay, so that's what I meant in regards to Shira's last question here, which is that it means anyone who does this, but maybe you can say that only a Talmid Chacham is capable of doing this type of chilul Hashem. Okay, so then he raises our question: V'imkein kasha eich efshar l'chal Shem Shemayim b'seser. How is it possible to desecrate the name of Hashem, the name of heaven in private? Taha b'seser ein roin shiomru kach. If it's in secret, then no one's going to see it, such that they would say this. Okay, so that's a very good question. Okay, so he gives two answers. The first one I think is an example, a classic example of a bad achrona answer. Okay, here it is. Yish l'taretz. It can be resolved. The case is there are 10 Talmidei Chachamim in one house. The ganav echad mehem davar, and one of them stole something. V'lo noda eze mehen, and you don't know which one it is. Okay, so like he constructs like this very, very specific case that this is talking about, and I just don't think that that's what the Mishnah is talking about. Okay, like yeah, it's nice, but like Mishnayos, in halacha you have cases like that, but like Pirkei Avos with ethical teachings. Yeah, tomorrow.
I don't know what this would be, but do you think that this is a stand-in for a category?
Yeah,
case?
I mean, I would like to think that. What he's trying, I mean, you can see where he's getting from because he's trying to construct a case where, yeah. So, but see, the funny thing also is he's trying. Sounds like he's trying to construct a public case also, right? There's 10 Talmidei Chachamim.
Maybe the beseser means that you don't know which one it is.
Right, the says you don't know which one it is, right? It was like a maybe there's a better word than in secret, a not anonymous,
unidentifiable.
like, unidentified. That's a good one. Yeah, unidentifiable sin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Lauren.
I'm wondering if maybe like I know it's like a very specific case, but I'm wondering if maybe he's assuming like if Jewish people all dress the same and then someone does it but like you're anonymous when you do this chilul Hashem, so it's not like you don't know the exact Jew that did it, but you know that it is a Jew.
Right.
And so it's kind of like redefining what it means. And like I don't know if you heard about like there was like this case this week where like a visibly Jewish person asked on an airplane, he was concerned about a plane, the wing of the plane, and he kept asking the pilot, is it safe or whatever, and they were saying like stop asking, and he ended up getting kicked off the plane. And they also took this other totally random but also visibly Orthodox person off the plane also.
Wow. Did not hear about
so yeah, so but it's like but he wasn't, but I mean it was a little complicated because I don't think he was doing a real chilul Hashem, but this his words remind me of that in the sense that like, if he was doing something wrong,
case like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look, you could say these things. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that this is not applicable. I'm saying that I don't think the Mishnah is talking about something this specific. Okay, he gives another example also. He says, alternatively, 10 Torah scholars were sitting together and one entered a house of ill repute. Okay, a base zonos, like a whorehouse, and it was not known which one. So he says, Shazem mechal shem shemaim b'seser. This is a case of desecrating the name in secret. Shelo noda shehu achote. You don't know who the sinner was. And the fact that they'll be punished in open, so it's going to come out who the sinner was. Okay. And then the other answer, though, is like what one of you asked or suggested through your question. Inami, alternatively, okay, that secret does not mean literally in secret. It just means that it's not widely known. Okay, because Baruch Hu mefarsim also lakol, and God will reveal it to everyone. Shiyu hakol yodim, and everyone will know. V'zehu v'nikra zeh seiser mishum dekamar achar kach nifram mimenu begalui dehainu mefursam lachol abrios. So it's a relative seiser. It's seiser relative to openly. So this answer I would accept. Okay, that this is talking about just like you're doing it where not a lot of people know about it, and it's going to end up that everyone's going to know about it. Okay, but still, I think that there is I didn't see any Rishonim give these answers. Okay, so I think that there is a more direct, simpler, broader, categorical answer. Yeah, Ayala?
Is he saying at the end that the punishment will be that it becomes publicized?
Interesting. It does sound like he's saying that, yeah. Meaning not that he will be punished and the punishment will be public, but that the punishment is publicizing it. Does sound like he's saying that. Yeah. Okay, so in order to okay, well, let me ask you this question. Okay, methodologically, how should we answer this question about understanding what the case is? What's the main question we have to ask? Yeah, Lauren?
Maybe like what is a chilul Hashem?
What is a chilul Hashem? Okay, right? Yeah. Okay, so where would you go if you wanted to know what the term chilul Hashem means? I mean, the pasuk which says that it's usher to be mechal Hashem Shemayim, but where would you go to understand it?
Where
would I go?
The Rambam.
Rambam. Okay. Now this is just a little methodology point here. Ordinarily, I go to the Mishnah Torah. Okay, but the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvos says that whenever he says that the goal in the Sefer HaMitzvos is not to detail all the halachos, but he's just going to explain the Perush Hashem. He's going to explain the term for each mitzvah, what it refers to. So if you go to the Sefer, we are going to look at the Mishnah Torah also, but here's the Sefer HaMitzvos, okay? And I'm going to read this one in English because he wrote it in Judeo-Arabic, so we're using a translation anyway. I don't think this is my translation. I think I copied this on from Alator. Okay, so he says like this. This is Mitzvos Lo Taseh number 63. Namely, that he prohibited us from desecrating God's name, and that is the opposite of the sanctification of God's name, the explanation of which proceeded in the 9th of the positive commandments. Interesting note, by the way, in the Sefer Mitzvos, it does seem like the order of the listing of the mitzvos is somewhat hierarchical. Like the most important mitzvos are first, and it's interesting that in the positive mitzvos, Kiddush Hashem is number 9, so it's way up there. In Sefer Mitzvos, it's 63, which is after all the mitzvos about Avodah Zarah. And we're going to see some of Farshim say that Avodah Zarah is, maybe we're going to see that chilul Hashem is worse than Avodah Zarah. So just a side question about why he puts it so late in the list. Not so late. I mean, there are 365 negative mitzvos, but relatively late. Okay, so he says, and this is that is his, may he be exalted, saying, and you shall not desecrate my holy name. Okay, that's in next week's parsha. And this sin is divided into 3 parts. 2 that are general for all, and 1 which is specific. Okay, so that's our those are our categories here. Okay, so first one's the one that I think is the most detailed in halacha. Indeed, the first of the general ones is anyone who it was demanded of him that he transgress one of the commandments at a time of shmad, of religious persecution, and the persecutor had in mind to make him sin, whether one of the light commandments or whether one of the weighty commandments, or one who it was demanded of him that he transgress with regards to idolatry, sexual immorality, or murder, even if it was not at a time of religious persecution. Behold, such a one is obligated to release himself and to be killed, and not to transgress, as we explained in the 9th of the positive commandments. But if he transgressed and was not killed, he has already desecrated God's name and violated this negative commandment. And if the transgressor was in a public place, meaning in front of 10 Israelites, he has already desecrated God's name in public, and he has violated the negative commandment of you shall not desecrate my holy name, and his sin is very great. I might as well do the, just really quickly, the Kiddush Hashem flowchart. I don't know, Ayala, if you remember this from high school, or Cheli, or tomorrow. No, I don't think this is in tomorrow's day. Okay, so just really quickly here. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to do the animation here, right? So you have basically, actually, maybe I will. 5%. Oh, whatever. It's not. I always forget. It messes up with my second monitor. Okay, anyway, so you got the big 3 according to the Rambam, which you always give up your life for rather than violate it. So non-Jew says, violate this or I'll kill you. You got to give up your life. With all other mitzvos, if it's a time of religious persecution, then you have to give up your life for any mitzvah. If it's not a time of religious persecution, and he's forcing you to violate the mitzvos for his own benefit, then with all the other mitzvos, then you should violate the mitzvos and live. So he says, make me cook me a meal on Shabbos. And he's doing it like just to get you to he's doing it for benefit. So you should cook him the meal. But if he's forcing you to violate the mitzvos just to make you violate them, then if it's in private and it's one of the other mitzvos, then you should violate the mitzvah. But if it's in public, meaning in a minyan of Jewish men or more, then you should give up your life. Okay, that's the Rambam's system there. Okay, so that's category 1. Category 2, and this is the one that people don't know about, okay? They tend to not know about. I'm going to read this one in Hebrew, even though the Hebrew is a translation. Yeah, Ayala?
Question on the flowchart. Is
Yeah.
mitzvos, does that mean like all d'oraisa mitzvot, or is it like any halacha?
So it's a good question. So the Gemara has a case of even if Jews have a custom to wear a certain type of shoelace, and they tell you to take off the shoelace, then that falls under this category that you have to give up your life for in time of persecution. I don't know what the Rambam holds about that. I don't think he mentions it in the Mishnah Torah, but the Rambam has this work called the Igeres Hashmad, where Jews were writing to him about this case that was happening, where they, there was a persecution, and he gives more details and direction there. And then there's also Chuvos. So I don't know what he holds about that. But yeah, presumably D'Rabbanan, I would think would also fit under this, because Rambam holds that you have to keep D'Rabbanans because of D'Oraisa. So, because of Lo Sasur. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, so here's the second category. Hachelik Sheni Hakolo Gam Kishiyase Hadam Avera Ein Taiva Ba Velo Hana Ava kiven bepuulaso hamerid uprikas ol malchus shemayim. So the second is when a person does a sin for which he has no desire, no benefit, but rather intends to show rebellion or the removal of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven with his action. So it's like a rebellious sin. We're going to read the Mishnah Torah on this also. This is also chilul shem shemayim v'lok, and you get malchus, you get whiplashes. Therefore, it says you will desecrate the name of your God. This person is intending to like provoke God, and there's no physical benefit. Okay, I'm going to read that same one in the Mishnah Torah, which I did not finish translating before shiur. Anyone who transgresses acting on his own mind without compulsion, with any of the mitzvot stated in the Torah, b'sha'at nefesh, with that's hard to translate, with like soulful audacity. I don't know how to say that. Lahakis, to provoke. Hashem. This person desecrates the name. Ulefikach, therefore, Nemar b'shvua sheker, it is said about a false oath, okay, which is in this week's parsha, v'chilalta Hashem elokecha ani Hashem. You will desecrate, I guess, and you will desecrate if you take a false oath, and you will desecrate the name of your God. I am Hashem. That's Vayikra 19:12. V'im avar, and if he transgressed ba'asar Yisrael in front of 10 Jews, he has desecrated the name in public. Okay, and then he says the opposite, which is kol porish me'avera o asa mitzvah lo mipnei davar ba'olam. If you abstain from an avera or you do a mitzvah, not because of any worldly thing, lo mipachav lo yirav lo levakish kavod, not out of fear or trepidation or honor, ella mipnei habore baruch hu, but just because of God. Kamanias Yosef atzadik asma me'eshes rabo, like Yosef refraining from giving into his the wife of his master. Then that's a kiddush Hashem. Okay. Third category is probably the most well-known one, which is the specific part, meaning the specific category of chilul Hashem, is when a man known for his virtue and goodness does a certain action that appears like a transgression in the eyes of the masses. Okay, meaning it's not actually a transgression, it just appears that way, meaning people regard it as such that it is not appropriate for someone esteemed to do this kind of action, even though the action is permissible. And this is they're saying in Yuma 86a, what are the circumstances of the desecration of God's name? Rav said, for example, someone like me, he's a chacham, if I take meat from the butcher and do not give him money immediately. Rabbi Yochanan said, for example, someone like me, if I walk 4 cubits without Torah and without tefillin. Here the Rambam says, gives other examples, I'm not going to write it down. There are other things that are included in chilul Hashem. This is if a person who is great in Torah and well known for piety does things that people complain about after him, or like they murmur about. The alpha pisha ain't unaveris, even though they're not transgressions. That person has desecrated the name. Like if you buy something and you don't give the money immediately, and that's if he has it. And this consequently the sellers are going to be like trying to like come after him to get the money, and he avoids them. Or he is excessive in joking around or eating and drinking with ignoramuses and among them. Or he doesn't speak kindly with people. And he doesn't greet them cheerfully. He's a curmudgeonly or contentious and angry person. Things like that. Everything is in proportion to the greatness of the chacham, and he needs to act beyond the letter of the law. Okay, so those are your 3. Let's just write this down in notes here. So 3. I'm just going to put this here. Okay, 3 categories of chilul Hashem. One is failing to give up your life, or I guess no, yeah, failing to give up your life in a situation of persecution. I'm just referring to the whole chart there. 2 is doing an avera not out of desire for pleasure, but just to provoke God. And then 3 is if you are a great person and you do something that is viewed as negatively. Okay. So of these 3 possibilities, which one would you say is most likely for our mission to be talking about? Yeah, Lauren?
The second case?
The second, okay, right? So I think the second one is the best candidate here, because that is the only one that you could do totally in private. Yeah, Ayala?
I was gonna say the third because it's like in Avos.
Okay,
So like that's usually
there are Mefarshim who learn this that this is about the third. Okay, and we're actually going to read 2 just so that we like acknowledge that and get an idea from it. But I think the difficulty though with the third is that you're going to have to say that Beseser does not mean totally in private, right? Okay, so the question now though, just to fully get the definition here, what do we mean by desecrating the name of God? Like what's up with that that language of like a desecration in the name of God? What does that like mean? Like I understand if you take an oath in vain, then you are treating God's name as mundane because it really should be reserved for holy things, and you're using it like to justify or to like do something false, or to you're using it needlessly. But like if you how are any of these things a desecration of the name of God? What does that mean? I'm sure this is an idea that you've talked about or heard about, but I just want to like try to express it verbally. Yeah, Allah.
So I feel like I've heard that shame means Hashem's reputation, and so maybe if someone does an avera, well, I don't know why in private, but at least just in public, does an avera like just to spite or whatever, it's like making a mockery and like kind of, of Hashem.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I was asking just about in general, and we'll bring it back to the private thing in a second. I'm just going to write down what Ayala said, and I'll call on Shira and Lauren. So the name of God refers to his reputation, and these 3 are all forms of tarnishing that reputation in people's eyes. Yeah, Shira?
Yeah, I think it's really similar to what Ayala said, but I was just thinking that it could mean like causing another person to think negatively of God.
Right.
I think like the third one I see as like a good example of doing that, because it's like somebody who you would expect to be following in the way of God, and then like if they're not, it might like almost somebody could see them as like parallel to like acting like God, and then if not, then it's making somebody think negatively about God.
Okay, that is definitely the case. That is most exemplified in the halacha that that you are supposed to only learn Torah from a Rav who has good midos, because he's supposed to be like a Malach Hashem, like an agent of God, like representing God's will enacted like on earth, and so you're conveying a negative impression of what God's midos are. Yeah, okay, that's good also. Okay, so I want to read to you the most concise I led with her idea by saying, like, I don't know like where we get this from or whatever. So I also don't know what the source is, but I want to read to you the most my favorite version that I recently found. So Rav Hirsch has a commentary on Pirkei Avos, and I don't know why he didn't say this there. He also has a book called Horeb where he goes through all the mitzvos, and this is where he says it. He says like this. This is just a beautiful definition, and I'm going to go ahead and read Horeb because it basically functions as an explanation of our Mishnah. He says, chilul Hashem, profaning the divine name, destruction of the recognition of God and his Torah. Okay, recognition of God, I think, is a good way to say it, because the name of Hashem is how we perceive God, right? Is how we conceive of him. So he says like this: that is such a fearful crime that our sages do not know of any worse one. All sins, they say, can be fully atoned for by genuine teshuvah, Yom Kippur, and suffering. But of chilul Hashem, the scriptures say, the sin shall never be forgiven until unto your death. Whoever profanes the name of God, even not publicly, shall publicly receive retribution. That's our Mishnah. The profaning of the divine name is the same whether it be done heedlessly or wantonly. and heedlessly is a good translation of shogeg, and prompt shall be the punishment for such a profaning. That's the Gemara and Kedushin I referenced. Now, this is a sharp point here. And truly, if you bear the name of God and your mode of living profanes this holy name, if your shameful life is deemed compatible with, in fact, approved by the holy will, then your destruction is necessary. Oh, sorry, not this point. Then your destruction is necessary to show that your life is a defiance of his will, and thus to reestablish the recognition of the all holy, which you have trodden underfoot. So he's explaining why you can only atone for chilul Hashem when you die. So basically, take someone who, I know he wasn't a religious Jew, but Bernie Madoff, okay? Big chilul Hashem, stole from a bunch of people. So Bernie Madoff is like a walking chilul Hashem. Anytime someone sees him, they're going to be like, oh, that Jew stole a lot of money. So really, the only way to atone for that, he could change himself internally, but as long as he's walking around, people will identify him as like a remnant of chilul Hashem. Like he's a walking chilul Hashem. So the only way to fully remove that is when he's dead, and he's out of existence. Okay, so that's why you only get full atonement when you die. Now, this is the sharp point, though. I love this. He says, and would you excuse yourself saying that you were thoughtless when you are concerned with the very highest? Is not the very fact that you could profane the name of God out of thoughtlessness a sign that the all-hallowed is not important to you, that he is not the most important, the very highest, if you were able to forget him? And is not such carelessness in itself a profanation of the divine, in itself a crime? So what question is he answering here? And how is he answering it? Yeah, Lauren?
Maybe he's answering like how I'm thinking how it could be like in I don't know. At first I was thinking how it could be in private, but now I'm not so sure anymore. Yeah, never mind.
Okay, sure, that's fine. Yeah, Tamar?
Maybe like how it's a chilul Hashem if you didn't mean to do it.
Right. Okay, and so what's his answer?
The fact that you were able to make that mistake is a chilul Hashem.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's funny. In kashrus, let's say, okay, if you do it intentionally, that's one thing. But if you do it unintentionally, that's bad. But it's not like you're violating kashrus more by doing it unintentionally. But because the whole idea of kiddush Hashem is recognizing that God, the Shem Hashem, is the only thing that really matters, then excusing yourself by saying, well, I wasn't thinking about it, that itself is a violation of the idea of kiddush Hashem, So it is unique in that regard. So that's an argument for why it should be the same. Okay. So this is actually a different answer than the one Tamar gave, even though we're going to go to Tamar's answer. Tamar's answer was the effect is the same. Here he's saying that the mind that was like, well, I wasn't thinking about this, or I didn't know that this was going to be a chilul Hashem. Yeah, that's exactly the problem, Okay. So, but the reason why I read this first was mainly for this idea of the destruction of the recognition of God in his Torah. Okay, so now we're ready for the Rambam and the Meiri. Okay, the Rambam, I think I said this recently. The Rambam, unlike in other works where the Rambam is trying to explain everything, in Pirkei Avos he says, I'm only going to explain stuff that needs to be explained. And frustratingly, he does not explain the first clause of our Mishnah. Okay, he does not explain he just explains the second clause. Okay, so we're going to read his commentary in the second clause. We have to figure out what the first clause is, but we have a pretty good lead because of the Rambam's definition of chilul Hashem, and then the Meiri is going to explain everything. Okay, all right. So let's look at the Rambam. Rambam says like this. I'll read this in English also because this is a translation. You know from Scripture that an intentional sin counts as an iniquity. And therefore, one requires atonement through a sacrifice. And Hashem says about him, he will be forgiven for the unintentional transgression which he sinned. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that the fact that you have to bring a korban for an unintentional sin means that there's some element of iniquity, of avon, and therefore, that's why you need to bring a korban. Okay, but without a doubt, this is not the same as an intentional sin, because God is too righteous to equate intentional and unintentional sins in any way. Rather, his intent here is that a desecration of the name, whether it took place intentionally or unintentionally, will be punished openly. If it was intentional, it will incur the guilt of intentionality. And if it was unintentional, it will incur the guilt of unintentionality. But both punishments will be public. Okay, so let's break this down before we go to the Meiri here, okay? The Rambam is making 3 points. Okay. Can anyone state what the 3 points are here? And I'll highlight them to make it easier to see where one ends and the other begins. Yeah, Lauren?
So he's first saying that like even though you're sinning b'shogeg, that's still like a sin that requires some level of atonement.
Okay, good.
Some...
So I'm gonna state this as a havmin. Okay, so you might think that a sin b'shogeg, an unintentional sin, is not a real iniquity. Okay, in truth, it is, as evidenced by the fact that you need atonement through a korban. Okay, good. Second point.
I guess, but he's still saying, but it's still not as severe as when you sin on purpose.
Okay.
It.
So you might think from this mishnah, okay, that God treats unintentional sins as the same as intentional ones. Okay. In truth, he doesn't. Okay. But punishes each sin accordingly. Okay, and then the third point.
I guess it might not. The third point is that the mode of punishment for both of them will be in public, but I guess still the b'shogeg one should be less severe. I guess
okay, right.
The second one be less severe than the
okay, right. So you might think that that the you might think that the punishment for the shogeg, for the unintentional sin, is like not at all similar to the intentional one, but in truth, when it comes to chilul Hashem, both punishments are carried out in public. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to understand what the havamina is, why we would think this, and then what the actual truth is. But we're going to go on and read the Meiri. Okay, the Meiri is going to fill in the Rambam. But before we read the Meiri, we need to read a Gemara. Okay, 2 Gemaras in Kiddushin. Okay, this first one might sound familiar, because we did a Gemara like this when we did the rainbow, gazing at the rainbow. Okay, last year I think, or 2 years ago. Amar Rabbi Eli Hazakin. Rabbi Eli Hazakin said, Im roy adam sheyitzro misgaber alav. If a person sees that his yetzer, his inclination, is overpowering him, yelech limakom she'ein makirin so he should go to a place where they don't recognize him. V'yilbash shchorim, and put on black clothes. V'yiskase shchorim, and cover himself in black. V'yaseh kamosh libu chavitz, and do what his heart desires. V'al yechalo shem shemayim b'far hesia, and don't desecrate the name of God in public. Okay, so this is I wrote an article about this also called how to deal with an uncontrollable yetzer. It's a machlokes whether Chazal are actually telling you to go and do what your heart desires. Rashi says, and other like Tosfos also says, like chas v'shalom, Chazal are not telling you to sin. They're saying put on black and like go to another place, and that's going to humble you, and you're going to decide not to sin. Okay, or like the Meiri says. When it says do what your heart desires, it doesn't mean do things that are usser. Okay, it means like do things that are like degrading. Like let's say you want to like I'll give an like let's say like you really want to go to a rave. Okay, there's nothing usser about going to a rave, but it's definitely not becoming of like a Talmid Chacham. So fine. So book a ticket to like some other country and dress all in black, and then like go to your rave. And not do a chilul shem shemayim in public. Okay, but there are some like I'm just going to quote it to you here. I think I remember where this is. I think it's in Rabbeinu Hananel. I think it's in multiple places, but I think Rabbeinu Hananel is the one who says it. If I can't find it, then so be it. 40. Wait, was this 40? Yeah, Rabbeinu Hananel. V'yasim al shali b'chafetz. Oh no, he's the one who says, no. So he says it's not telling you to do what your heart desires. Okay, so someone says, someone else, is it the Tosfos here? No, that's the same thing. How's it written in Hanano? Interesting. Okay, fine. I don't remember who says it. Okay, well, whatever. That's a separate topic. Okay, fine. We'll just go along with this. Okay, but now the Gemara says, "Aini, is this really true?" V'hatanya, didn't we learn in a brisa? Kol shelo chas al kavod kono roy lo shelo ba'al olam. If a person doesn't care about the glory of his creator, he'd be better off not being born. Mahi, what does it mean that he doesn't care about the glory of his creator? Rabba Omer Zeha Mistako B'Keshes. Rabba says it's talking about staring at a rainbow, which if you're curious about what that means, then listen to that shiur. Rav Yosef Omer Zeha Over Avera B'Seiser. This is a person who transgresses in private. Okay, so now you got a problem here because the Rabbi Eli's statement is advocating going somewhere where people don't know you and doing a sin in private. Okay, not literally in private, but in private in the sense that no one knows you. But then this brisa is saying that if you do a sin in private, it's better if you never were born. Okay, so that's contradiction. So what's the answer? Lo kasha. It's not a contradiction. Ha dematzif kayef liyitzre, v'ha lo matzi kayef liyitzre. The brisa, this case about not caring about the glory of your creator, refers to a case where it's possible for him to control his yetzer, whereas Rabbi Eli's statement is a case where he cannot control his yetzer. So in other words, if you can control your yetzer and you intentionally do a sin in private, so then better off if you were never born. But if you can't control yourself, so then definitely do damage control and try to avoid doing a public chilul shem shemayim. Okay? Any questions on that, Gemara? I mean, I know it's a whole topic, but just in terms of the pshat. Okay, second Gemara. This is in Kiddushin Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Kol Over Avera B'Seiser Kilu Dochek Ragle Shchina. Rabbi Yitzchak said, anyone who transgresses in secret, it's as if he trips the Shchina. Literally, Dochek pushes Ragle, the feet of Shchina, the divine presence. Shnemar, as it says, Ko Amar Ad Hashem Hashemayim Kisi V'Haaretz Hadam Raglai. The heavens are my throne. Thus says Hashem, the heavens are my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Okay, so what the Meiri is going to do is he's going to link these two together. He's going to link transgressing an avera in secret, and this case of not having a concern about your creator, and then he's going to link it to our mishnah. Okay, ready for this? This is going to be his explanation, and it's beautifully stated. Okay, actually, anyone want to just like give an interpretation of what it means that you're tripping the shechina if you do a transgression in secret? And remember, this is only if you cannot control if you can control your yetzer. Then if you do an avera in secret, it's like you're tripping the shechina, which is bad, by the way. It's a funny phrase. Okay, well, the Meiri is going to explain it to us. Okay, here's what he says. So this is we're going to go through several Meiris. We're going to start on the Meiri on our mishnah in Avos, but he references himself earlier, and I'm going to quote the Meiri from all these Gemaras. Okay, so he's going to say the same thing, just different words. I feel like the more presentations, the better. So he says like this. Kvar bi'arnu, we've already explained in Avos 3:15, to hamachal shem shemayim b'seiser, that one who desecrates the name of heaven in secret. Okay, this is the beautiful description. Hu ki'ilu dochak b'tziuro hashgachas Hashem Yisrael mimakam omdo. In his mind's conception, is pushing away God's providence from the place where he is standing. Okay, so that's what he says it is to trip the shechina. Okay, let's see in Avos 3:15 what he says. So in Avos 3:15 he says, Amruzal kol ha'over avera b'seiser kilu dochak ragli shechina. Kolomar over avera b'seiser lekavanas his almusa mimenu yisbarach ki his almusa mibnei adam. One who transgresses in secret with the intention of concealing it from God, just as he conceals it from people. Okay, ilu dochak ragle shchina. It's as if he pushes aside the feet of the shchina. Kolomar, meaning to say, kemi shemachria be'iyuno histalik yediaso mina tachtonim. He is like someone who theologically concludes that God has no knowledge of earthly phenomena. Okay, or here's the Meiri on Kiddushin 31a, which is what we just read with the tripping of the Shechina thing. He says, "La'olam te morash ma'im b'libo shel adam v'yizbonin she'ein davar nela mimenu." Fear of heaven should always be in a person's heart and should contemplate the fact that nothing is hidden from him, from God. Kola over avera b'seser, anyone who transgresses in secret, ad sheyadamev yomar ein Hashem roeni, to the point where he imagines, and says, Hashem doesn't see me. Harihu kilu dochak rag l'shchina, rotz lomar shemitzayer belibo hedar kavodo v'hashgachaso misham. In other words, he imagines in his mind the absence of God's glory and his hashgacha from there. Okay, v'hari nemar, but it says, Eini Hashem mashotos b'chol haaretz. The eyes of Hashem roam throughout the land. V'kasuv hashmaim kisiv haaretz hadam raglai, and it says the heavens are my throne and the earth is my footstool. B'chein asur leilach is another isurim that Chazal say are like tripping the Shechina. Asur leilach ba'azus metach. It's asur to walk with a brazen forehead, like an arrogant, like the Soviet painting postures of all the people like looking like that. Migdolei hachachamim lo hayu holchim afilu arba amos b'koma zakufa ubegili rosh. Same thing. It's prohibited. The greatest chachamim would not walk even 4 cubits with an upright posture or an uncovered head. Okay, last one. We're not going to read the whole thing, just the first part. Lo'olam yizahar adam michilul Hashem. A person should always be cautious about chilul Hashem. Kagon lomei Torah. For example, someone who learns Torah, shabal la'avor avera b'farhesia, and he does an avera in public. You should be more careful than this than about all the averos. They said by way of insight, better to transgress in secret than to transgress in than to desecrate the name of Hashem in public. Okay. So even though they said someone who sins in public, in secret, it's as if he trips the Shechina. That is, he removes the hashgacha of Hashem from there and treats him as one who doesn't know. Okay, then he goes on and he says that's only in the case where you're able to control your yetzer. Okay, and you do this to try to avoid people knowing about it. Okay, so what are we seeing from this? We're seeing that he's limiting this to a case where you are doing an avera in secret, and the key point here is he transgresses in secret with the intention of concealing it from God, just as he conceals it from people. Okay, he's going to circle back to that at the end of his commentary. Okay, but just note that from now is over avera b'seser lekavanas his amusa mimeno yisbarach his amus mimidei adam. Okay, let's read on. In our commentary here. So again, in his mind's conception, he pushes away God's providence from the place he's standing. Therefore, he is assigned a mida keneged mida, a punishment measure for measure. Shehu ne'anash aleha begaloi. He will be punished for it in public. So that the magnitude of his punishment publicizes his sin in secret. Umash amar echad shogeg ve'echad mezi b'chilul Hashem, hu she'af hashogeg tzarech kapara. So when it says that whether unintentional or intentional, both are alike in the desecration of the name, it means that even a sin committed unintentionally requires atonement. That's like the Rambam says. V'chol shelo niskaper achari yediaso naase ke'ein mezid. Anyone, this is an important line, anyone who does not seek atonement after realizing he sinned is considered like he sinned intentionally. Okay, why? Al she'enu mevi kaparasa o mizvade, because he does not now offer his atonement and confess. Okay, yeah. So that's talking about a case that's really dealing with the question of what would it look like to do this b'shogeg. Okay, so he's saying if you sinned in private, b'shogeg in this manner. Okay, we'll define the manner more later on. And then you realized that this thing was usher and you didn't engage in your tshuva process or your korban, so then that is like mazid. In this regard, the person is destined to be punished for the sin in public to the extent he deserves in accordance with the justice of Hashem, blessed is he. Okay, now he clarifies the case. The Tana explains further that the reason for the severity of the punishment is due to the desecration of the name. chote mitzad tokef hayetzer. He's not sinning because he's overpowered by his desire. Ela mitzad piruk ol uvezoso haTorah umitzvoseha ukfiraso biyadiaso yisbarach uvahashgachaso. That is, he does not sin because of the strength of his inclination, but out of casting off the yoke and degrading the Torah and its mitzvos and denying God's knowledge and providence. Okay, so this is exactly the Rambam's second category of chilul Hashem. Okay, so let's just summarize the Meiri here. Okay, and then we'll explain the whole thing. So summary of the Meiri. Okay, so the case of Mechalel Shem Shemayim Baseser is doing an avera in secret, okay, because you are rebelling against God and thinking that his knowledge and or providence don't extend to your secret actions. Just like and just like there will be no consequences from other people if they don't know about it, so too there won't be consequences from God if he doesn't know about it. Okay, so that's the Meiri's main point. And then he clarifies that the punishment is mida keneged mida, which is why it's in the open. Okay, so that's the pshat of the Meiri. Okay, but what we have to figure out as our last step here is understanding the Rambam and the Hava Aminas, and then what exactly this guy's mentality is, and then how it relates to us and how we implement it practically. So the questions here are, let me just list the outstanding questions. Okay, so number one, why would we think? Okay, this is on the Rambam. Okay, why would we think that an unintentional sin is not a sin? It's not an iniquity. Okay. Question 2 is also on the Rambam. Is why would we think that after learning that it is an iniquity, why might we think that Hashem treats unintentional sins the same as intentional sins? Okay. Question 3 is on the Rambam and the Meiri. Okay, is why does Hashem punish this, Mechal Shem Shemayim B'Seser, in public, regardless of intentionality? Okay, I think those are the 3 questions we have to answer. Yeah, Tamar?
Maybe I think I might have missed something, but how do you have somebody trying to rebel against Hashem unintentionally?
Okay, yeah. So that's the cleverness of the Meiri's. Okay, so actually, I verbally referenced this, but I didn't flesh it out. Okay, so let me just think about how a practical example. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I think the case is like this. Okay, and I don't know how common this is, but I imagine it's very common. Okay, that Hilchos Shabbos is very complex. Okay, and okay, I know. Okay, the case that I'm going to give is not exactly like the Meiri, because the Meiri is saying that he's doing it out of the strength of his inclination. So this is not going to be one that everyone relates to, but I think in part we can relate to it. So imagine okay, I'll create a vivid scene. Okay, imagine a kid who is a high schooler who is not so on board with Judaism. Okay, he was raised religious, but not so on board with it. Okay, and he's in his room alone on Shabbos, and some situation presents itself where he's not so sure whether this action violates Shabbos or not. Okay, he doesn't know the halachos well enough. Okay, but he says, does God really care if I do this? Or is it am I really gonna get zapped by lightning if I do this thing? And he just does the action. Okay, so that qualifies as the Meiri of he's doing it in some sort of like feeling that God is not seeing him, or God doesn't care, or God's hashgacha doesn't extend to this. But it's shogeg because he doesn't know that the thing is usur. Then he subsequently learns that the thing that he did was usur. And what the Meiri is saying is that if after finding out that what you did was usur, you don't go and do tshuva, so then God will treat it like mazid. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it has to be that he's like kind of rebelliously negligent. I don't know.
Okay,
exactly
yeah, so here's the thing. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I was trying to put this into the question, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a stance on this here. Okay, I think that when the Meiri says that, when he like depicts this guy, that he is not doing it because of the strength of his inclination, but he's doing it out of casting off the yoke and degrading the Torah and its mitzvahs and denying God's knowledge and providence. He makes it seem like that is like an absolute black or white category. Just like the Rambam, like if you read those halachos about chilul Hashem that we read in the Rambam, the second category seems like either you're sinning out of desire or you're doing it to rebel against God. My suspicion is that this is something that you can partake of, in degrees. Okay, and I think that a person can partake of this mentality unconsciously as well. Okay, like I think there is a part of us that that does feel like, even this guy who, like the Gemara says, he can't control himself, so he is doing it in secret. So yeah, this guy who's doing it in secret clearly, this guy who's doing it in secret, he clearly cares about the Shem Hashem. Okay, otherwise he wouldn't be like making this trip. But there is a part of you that when you're doing this in a secret, especially if it's in private, like this guy's doing it in public, if you're doing it in private, there's part of you that feels like God doesn't know about this, or like that there aren't going to be consequences here. And the way that I quote this a lot, but like I think one of the greatest quotations that illustrates what we mean by God's knowledge is Einstein's statement about physics, that all I want to do is to know God's thoughts. And Einstein is referring to reality as God's thoughts. Like Einstein is referring to the laws of physics or the universe, but God's thoughts are synonymous with reality. So I think that there is this feeling that we all have when we do an avera, either b'mezid or b'shogeg in private, that it's like, this is compartmentalized. Like in my Dalet Amos, like God's thoughts and God's hashgacha don't extend here. This isn't really real. And I think that's like the mentality that the Meiri is talking about, and he's giving like the ultimate expression of it, which is where you are doing it out of rebelliousness. But I think people partake of this in lesser ways, and I think that therefore the shogeg case, I think we can all relate to the shogeg case where let's say like you just don't know if something is usur, and instead of avoiding it, you just like, oh, I'll just do it. You just feel like no one knows about it. God's not gonna like care about it so much. And what the Meiri is saying is, once you find out that it's usur and you still dismiss it, that is like mazid. Yeah, Tamar.
The way that I'm hearing this, and tell me if this is the correct or not summary of what you're saying, is that like when you do an avera, there's sort of potentially like a spectrum of why you're doing it. It's because you want the thing, and there's also like because you don't really care about halacha in some way,
Right.
or you're kind of denying God. And
Exactly.
so when you're reading the Meiri, you might read it as like only if the person is all the way on the side of denying God, but you're saying basically anything besides for just totally getting overpowered by your desire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it is a spectrum. Like it does, like there's the guy who's totally in the grips of their desire, and then there's like more and more intentionality, and then like like the even Chazal, they talk about a mumar l'te'avon and a mumar l'halachos. Mumar is someone who like basically negates a mitzvah. So a mumar l'te'avon is someone. So a mumar l'halachos is someone who like says, I don't hold by that mitzvah, like just completely like saying like as if that mitzvah doesn't exist for him. A mumur l'te'avon is like, I can't control myself in this one area, you know? Now, the mumur l'te'avon is, you know, is like, it's not just like he was overcome in the heat of the moment. He's saying like, I'm not keeping this mitzvah, but he's doing it out of desire. So like, there is like this in-between stance. Like, what is that person thinking when he's violating the mitzvah? I mean, I think that the person must be thinking that like, you know, God doesn't care about it because I can't control myself, you know? Like, I think it still partakes of that. Okay. I'm actually, in the interest of time, just gonna, and because I've already started talking about these ideas, I just want to answer these 3 questions, which is like this. Okay, why would we think that an unintentional sin is not an iniquity? So I think an answer is that that this havamina stems from a belief that the only thing that's wrong with sinning is intention. Okay, and that there are no external effects, okay, on the world or on yourself. Okay, so therefore, it's like if I didn't mean to do it, then it wasn't really wrong. Okay, but that's really false. Okay, right? In truth, like there, you know, intentionality does matter, but there are also real world consequences that occur even if you did it unintentionally. Okay. And I want to give 2 different kinds of examples for this. I think this reminds me of like, there are certain people who, when they sense something wrong with their body, like they find a lump in a place where there shouldn't be a lump, or they have like a toothache, they won't go to a doctor. And you ask them, why aren't you going to a doctor? They're like, I don't want to find out that it's cancer, you know? Well, if it is cancer, then it's not you finding out about it that's going to like make it. It is a reality. And like, you know, hearing the diagnosis is not what induces the reality. So it's like they're denying they're saying if no one knows about it, it's not real, you know, but really it is real. Or the other example I want to give, which is kind of a humorous example, is if you take a well, this part's not humorous. If you take a car and you do a terrorist attack by ramming someone, we can all agree that that's bad. Okay, but let's imagine you're driving along, okay, and like you're like looking at the landscape, and suddenly you hear this thud thud, and then you look back and you realize you ran over someone. Okay, and you say, well, it was unintentional. It was shogeg. I didn't do anything wrong. You know, that's clearly a problem because you're denying that you caused like a consequence in reality. Okay, so this is, I think that's where the havamina is, that I think people do have this view. Maybe it's because they relate to mitzvahs as rules, or maybe it's because they have a very, very severe case of it's the thought that counts, you know, and like they just don't think that there's any like absolute reality to like halacha. But yeah, the thought counts, but there's also real effects. And so the Rambam is trying to disabuse you of this notion and saying, yeah, you know, even something that's peshogeg is an avera, and the proof is that you need to do kapara for it. You need kapara. Yeah, Tamar?
Just quickly about like how it's the intention that counts, that mindset.
Yeah.
That's actually how it works when you're a kid and you
Yeah.
grow out of it and get responsibility as an
That's a
adult.
good
I think
point.
it's interesting.
That's a good point, right? That's probably it. I don't know if that's the cause, but it certainly like doesn't help the problem, right? Yeah, okay. So then the opposite of havamina is after learning that it is that this, you know, that sorry, that let me clarify this here, that unintentional sins are iniquities. Okay. What might we think that Hashem treats unintentional sins the same as intentional sins? So the answer to that is is this is the opposite problem, is this hava amina stems from a belief that only your actions count and the inner world of bechira doesn't matter. Okay, that's also false because someone who knowingly does an avera is like, you know, harming themselves more and is likely under a greater distortion than one who does it unintentionally. Okay, so that is why the Rambam has to tell you that. Okay, so I can't answer this question. It is interesting, going back to what shiur was saying, or not what shiur was saying, to why shiur was saying this. It's interesting that the Rambam is introducing this here in this mishnah about chilul Hashem, because Rambam can make this point anywhere about sins. Anytime it talks about, I mean, I guess because here it's talking about echad shogeg ve'echad mezid, so like he needs to clarify it here. But this is a very universal point. Like this point is not dependent on the chilul Hashem and kiddush Hashem part. Okay, but now, this is the last step here. Why does Hashem punish the mechalel shem shemayim b'seiser in public, regardless of intentionality? Now, Tamar's answer was good, which is that the effect is still a public effect, and that needs to be addressed. And Rav Hirsch's answer is still good because unintentional chilul Hashem is, shows a lack in that. But what is the Meiri saying? He puts it in mida keneged mida terms here. Where is it? Yeah, this is in green here. So what is the Meiri saying? Yeah, Ayala?
Seems like your mistake was thinking that like your action wouldn't have any consequences because no one knows about it. And like as a mida keneged mida, not only is it going to have consequences for you, but it's going to be public consequences that everyone will know about.
Okay, so I think you could state this in two ways. Okay, one is more mishlaic. Okay, which is you thought that this was okay because nobody knew about it. And now Hashem will make everybody know about it. Okay. So the fate you were trying to avoid, i.e., public shame, is now the fate you'll get. Okay. I think there is another answer that is more metaphysical or theological, however you want to put it. Anyone have a different answer? And remember, mida keneged mida is like means that the punishment is tailored to guide you on a path to tshuva. Yeah, Lauren?
Maybe it teaches them that nothing is really private, that like God's providence is everywhere.
Exactly. Okay, right. So I'm going to put it in the terms that I was using rather than the terms that Meiri was using. It's as if Hashem is saying, oh, you think that because people don't know about it, then it's not real or doesn't count. Okay. If that's the only language you understand, I'll make that happen. Okay. In other words, like this guy only treats as real what is seen in the public eye. And that is an obstacle to his tshuva, right? He's not going to do tshuva on this because he thinks that the stuff that occurs in private is not real. So Hashem will bring it out into the open and make it real by this guy's standards, and that will force the guy to do tshuva. Okay. And just to bring out a little bit in terms of I know we said this verbally, but I just want to bring it out in writing here. So what's going on in the shogeg case? So the answer here is when you do an avera b'seiser b'shogeg, okay, which again, for example, you don't know that it's usher, okay, which I think is the is going to have to be the case here, because if you forgot, then you're not really doing it b'shogeg in this way. So, and then you realize that it's usher. Okay, you're now at a crossroads. Okay, either you can dismiss your past action and say, I didn't know it was usher, so it doesn't count. Okay, so it doesn't count, which is falling into the trap of the Rambam's first Havamina. Okay, or you can say, now I know it's usher, and I need to do tshuva. Okay, so the Meiri is saying that if you take that first road, then you are partaking of this type of, dochak ragle shchina, but you're doing it retroactively. Okay, like you're saying that since I didn't have knowledge of it, then it didn't count. But that is exactly the same mistake as the guy who is about to voluntarily engage in the avera in secret and say it doesn't count because no one knows about it. So that requires kapara. And if you don't, engage in tshuva, then it's on the level of mazid in terms of the distortion of dochak raglei shechina. Raglei shechina and chilul Hashem. And just to emphasize here again, chilul Hashem, I should have said this earlier. Chilul Hashem is a destruction of knowledge of God. Okay, in this case, you're doing that to yourself. Okay, the chilul Hashem is the fact that you are tripping the Shekhinah. That's why the Meiri brings all this in, is that you are warping and distorting your knowledge of God every time you say that God doesn't see me, or God doesn't know, or this doesn't count. Okay, so that's the real consequence of chilul Hashem. And if you found out that you did the sin in the past and then you don't do tshuva on it, that is like intentionally promoting a distortion of God in your own mind. Okay. So there are other ideas that I wanted to get to. There's a Sforno, and then there's also a Rashi that is, I'm just going to read the Rashi because it's such a fascinating Rashi that he takes this very roundabout way. He says like this: anyone who desecrates the name of Hashem in private, namely he transgresses in secret, punishment will be exacted from him in public. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will expose his shame to everyone. As it is stated in Mishnah 26:26, though his hatred is covered by darkness, his evil will be revealed in public. Why all this? So that the name of heaven will not be desecrated through him, namely, so that people should not say, look at so-and-so who is a chacham who does good actions, yet these calamities befell him. Therefore, whether one acts unintentionally or whether one acts intentionally, in a situation where there might be a desecration of the name of Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals all. So in other words, Rashi is saying that this is a case where a guy has a reputation of being a tzaddik, but he does something in private. The chilul Hashem, according to Rashi, is people will see this guy getting punished, but they'll think he's a tzaddik, and that will lead them to deny divine justice. So God will bring out the sin so that people know that he's getting punished for the right reasons. It's just a very roundabout way of reading it. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I got to go back. There's one question which we did not answer, okay? Or two, depending on how you count it. The question we did not answer is Ayala's question, which is this really true, what the Meiri is saying? Like, does God really... someone who sins in this way, in private, does God really like punish that person in public every time? And similarly, if you hold by this Gemara that God punishes the person immediately, I just don't think that that's true. And the proof of this is, there are, you hear about this on podcasts. There are people who are like living secret, like irreligious lives. Like these people who are like, Haredim, who like privately are atheists or feel stifled by the lifestyle, and like they have frum families, and they go and like they do a bunch of averos in secret, and they are doing it because they deny God or they deny his hashgacha, but like they're not getting exposed immediately, So it is it's a difficult thing to say that this is that this happens. Yeah, I don't have a really good answer for that. The only answer I can give, which I'll just throw out there because it's the best I have, is that just like in Mishlei, when Mishlei states a consequence, if a fool does this, then he'll get that consequence. It doesn't mean that it is always going to happen. Okay, like Mishlei works based on probability. So too in the realm of schar v'onesh, you have all these principles that Chazal say of schar v'onesh, of reward and punishment. And they're stated as absolutes, like they'll say, like, if you do, al shalosh averos nashim mesos bishas ledasan al she'inan zahiros benida b'chalu b'hadlakas aner. Right? We say this in Bamei Madlikin. Women die in childbirth. Wait, what was it? Yeah, women die in childbirth for three reasons: because they're not careful with nida, with chala, and hadlakas aner. Now, that's like not absolutely true, right? Like there are cases where women die in childbirth and they're not guilty of those. For example, Rachel, okay, she died in childbirth because of Binyamin. I don't think it's because she wasn't careful in those things. Okay, sometimes there are medical complications. Sometimes a woman could die for some other reason, But Chazal stated as an absolute. Why? Because part of how Hashgacha and Skarv Onish works is that we frame it that way, So if you see someone who was doing an Avera in secret and they got publicly exposed, then you should think that is then you should associate to this and say that is an example of Mida Kneged Mida punishment here. I don't think it means that it's always going to happen, because it doesn't always happen, especially immediately. So that's the best I can make of this. And that's kind of a general statement about how Chazal talk about, principles of Hashgacha and reward and punishment in general, that they're not absolute. Again, there's so many statements like that. If you are careful with Ner Hanukkah, then you're going to have, with the Ner Shal Mitzvah, you're going to have children who are banim who are Talmidei Chachamim. Is that always true? I don't think so. But it's stated as an absolute because you should think into it and like get the ideas from it. That's all I got. But yeah. Okay, so the takeaway is, I think this is something that, look, if we took the route that this is talking about a traditional chilul Hashem, that people will see you and like it'll be bad for the reputation of Torah, then I think this is directed primarily at Talmidei Chachamim. But the way we've been taking it with the Rambam and the Meiri, I think this applies to everybody, and I think it behooves us to, when we are doing something in private, and again, I think for us, the most common case of it, I can speak for myself, is like, sometimes it's it's Pesach and like, Yom Tov start and like you can't call your posek and like you're like, and like you don't know whether something is us or not, so you just kind of like, it's not gonna matter, you like decide leniently. I think it's very easy to like, and everyone has different areas where they have this. Some people it's in monetary matters, some people it's in kashrus, some people it's in whatever. Like we all have our Yetzer, and I think like there's a part of us that partakes of this feeling that like it doesn't matter if people don't know about it, but like that is tripping the Shekhinah, and like that will come out, and you're reinforcing a mentality where God's Hashgacha is not as real as human knowledge, and that's like an unhealthy bad thing. That's why Chazal say, like, in some senses, a ganav is worse than a gazlan, right? Because the the gazlan, no, yeah, right, because the ganav thinks that since no one sees him, then like he can do it, but that's giving to the same emotion. Yeah, Lauren.
Just to clarify, is it shogeg only like after, like you think that it's you don't know that it's usher and you think like God doesn't care, or God doesn't really see, or is it like shogeg after you're forewarned? I guess I'm confused when it goes from like.
I think the only case for shogeg that works is in this case is where you don't know that it's usher and you do it anyway because you downplay it in your mind. Because the other case of shogeg where you forget that it's usher, I just don't see how you can fit into the Meiri's definition of Mechal Shem Shemayim in his way b'shogeg. Like I just don't understand how that would work.
Okay, so when does it so then I guess I was just confused where it comes in about you find out that it's wrong and then you still do it anyway.
Right. Oh, no. So you find out that it's wrong, and he's saying, and you don't do tshuva on it.
Okay, like after you already sinned in private.
After you already sinned, yeah. That's the move he's making. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I hope this was a good mishnah. As far as I know, next week, then we'll do the next mishnah. At some point, I may, if I find something juicy in Megillus Rus, maybe I'll use this slot for that, or we'll do it on Machshava Lab. And as for tomorrow's shiur, I posted in the chat. I still don't know what we're giving shiur on. It really depends on what I get written before. Depends on where I'm at by 11 o'clock. Okay, so tune in for a surprise, and we'll see what we learn. Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.